particularly from recent US tariffs. Along with meeting External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, Wang will meet Prime Minister Modi and NSA Ajit Doval on Tuesday. Wang will also visit Pakistan once he is done in Delhi. Now let us look at the strategic significance of the visit. Wang Yi's visit is timed just before PM Modi's two-day visit to China. Prime Minister Modi will attend Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit beginning 31st of August. US's doubling tariffs on Indian goods to 50% has brought New Delhi and Beijing closer. 2025 is the 75th year of the India-China ties. Both sides have agreed to resume direct flights and the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. India has resumed issuing tourist visas to Chinese nationals after years of curbs. Now let me play out the bite of S. Jaishankar and subsequently I'll play out the bite of Wang Yi, which happened during the opening statements made in an occasion where both delegations met.
For the 24th round of talks between the special representatives of India and China. This is also the first visit by a Chinese minister since our leaders met in Kazan in October 2024. This occasion provides us an opportunity to meet and review our bilateral ties. It is also an appropriate time to exchange views on the global situation and some issues of mutual interest. Having seen a difficult period in our relationship, Excellency, our two nations now seek to move ahead. This requires a candid and constructive approach from both sides. In that endeavor, we must be guided by the three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. Differences must not become disputes, nor competition conflict. Today, our talks will cover economic and trade issues, pilgrimages, people-to-people contacts, river data sharing, border trade, connectivity, and bilateral exchanges. I would like to follow up on some particular concerns that I had brought up with you, Excellency, when I visited China in July. You, Excellency, will also be discussing, border issues with our Special Representative, National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, tomorrow.
Before his August 2025 visit, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi last visited India in March 2022. It was Wang's first visit since the Galwan Valley clashes in June 2020. He met Jaishankar and NSA Ajit Doval. The visit focused on border tension, economic cooperation and restoring diplomatic dialogue. China said that it is willing to communicate with India in a positive and constructive attitude as Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visits New Delhi.
中方愿以王毅外长此次访问印度为契机，同印方一道努力，落实好两国领导人的重要共识，保持两国高层交往势头，增进政治互信，加强务实合作，妥善处理分歧，推动中印关系持续健康稳定发展。
At his last meeting with Wang in Beijing in July, EAM Jaishankar had said that India and China must build on the good progress made by addressing issues related to the border, including de-escalation, and avoid restrictive trade measures and roadblock to economic cooperation. However, there are numbers of unresolved issues still hanging. So what are they? India views peace at the LAC a prerequisite for normal ties. 2020 Galwan clash led to breach of trust. Tensions persist at Depsang Plains, Pangong Lake and Gogra Hot Springs. China's position on Arunachal Pradesh remains unchanged. China is rapidly building infrastructure near LAC, making India wary. China fought real time for Pakistan during Operation Sindhu, provided high-tech military aid to Islamabad. India faces a significant trade deficit with China and is fighting it with self-reliance. Now, $101 billion in 23-24. China was largest contributors to India's trade deficit. China is building a mega dam on Sangpo near Arunachal Pradesh border. China's growing presence in our neighborhood areas, including Bangladesh, through projects like BRI, is also detrimental. Now, these are the issues on plate. And I am joined by Professor Swaran Singh from Center for International Politics, JNU. Sir, There is one thing which has happened which is missing the eye. Wang Yi is going to be in Pakistan after Delhi, day after tomorrow. There is a hyphenation which is happening. Why have Chinese done that if it was a green shoot?
You're right in taking note of that. There is a clear signal which always happens whether Chinese leaders are visiting only India or they are turning it into a South Asia kind of a tour. And in this case, Wang Yi is going to either Islamabad or Kabul to conduct a trilateral China, Afghanistan, Pakistan foreign ministers meeting. And it clearly indicates that in case particularly the visit takes him to Islamabad instead of Kabul, would be to reassure Pakistan that their interests will not be compromised. And you did mention of some of the irritations that continue to exist in India-China relations. And the most recent in that, of course, is China's real-time and defense equipment supplies to Pakistan, even during Operation Sindoor, which showcased that their priorities between India and Pakistan remain clear. So yes, there are definitely several irritations, and you heard Foreign Minister mention that he will also bring up some of the concerns, quote unquote, that he had brought up also during that meeting in July in Beijing. So yes, there are issues where both sides have concerns. India has concerns. But the big picture looks like from the last October Kazan meeting of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping is to take bilateral relations in a more positive, synergetic kind of a direction, which has seen both sides making concessions to each other.
Okay.
Of course, India fundamentally believes that nothing is normalized until border is normalized.
Okay.
So our focus remains on resolving border-centric issues like Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, river water data sharing, and de-escalation on the border. Chinese want to present a bigger picture that no single issue should hold hostage the relationship, and therefore want everything to be on the table: direct flights, trade improvement, relaxing of provisions for Chinese investments into India. And I think both sides are over time beginning to sort of accommodate each other's concerns.
Professor Singh, let me play out the bite of the Chinese foreign minister now.
Show their responsibilities as we maintained the tranquility in the border areas and resumed the Indian pilgrimage to the Mount Garampochi and Lake Napayonzo in the Xizang Autonomous Region. We should firm up confidence to dispel interference, expand cooperation, and to further consolidate the momentum of improvement and development of China-India relations, so that while pursuing our respective rejuvenation, we can contribute to each other's success and provide the most needed certainty and stability to Asia and the world. That concludes my opening remarks. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Professor Swaran Singh, Chinese foreign minister is speaking about their commitment to maintain peace on the border. But there are two important issues. One, China has made no substantial movement to assure India that the peace can be maintained on LAC because the infrastructure buildup has doubled, tripled after Galwan. And the second issue is, I come back to this point again because Sindoor has proved that China was fighting real time with Pakistan. And this was articulated by Indian Army. So in this perspective, how substantive is this visit? Because Operation Sindoor has taken place, you have border infrastructure that is going up, And this visit is hyphenated. Not only Pakistan, there will be a meeting with the officials of Afghanistan when he is in Pakistan. So it's also a very sort of a different ball game in which the China is involved. India, Pakistan, Afghanistan.
You're right. Even in his initial remarks, as you mentioned, he ended by talking in terms of prosperity and stability in the larger region of Asia. So he's bringing that larger focus into it, and within that is his visit to Pakistan and the trilateral meeting with Afghanistan, Pakistan, foreign ministers in that sense. But let me say that this is the first high-level visit. Wang Yi is right now the Politburo member of the Standing Committee of Chinese Communist Party. So he's quite senior leader in China. And as you mentioned, after early 2022, this is a visit after a long time. Now compare this with, thanks to Shanghai Cooperation Organization being hosted this year by China, we have seen Indian National Security Advisor, Indian Defense Minister, Indian Foreign Minister already visiting China. And soon we will have Prime Minister Narendra Modi also visiting China to attend the summit meeting of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So in that sense, to maintain certain reciprocity, and I think also to prepare for Prime Minister's visit to China, this is a high-level visit from China to India, and hopefully take certain process which is in place forward. But one is not denying that there are always going to be irritations and concerns of India with China. Those are very rapidly expanding and changing and transforming societies and economies.
Professor Singh, there are things which we can control. There are things which are slightly out of control, and I want your thoughts on it. Because, for example, the succession of Dalai Lama is very, very important to China. I would say that that's the most important thing right now, in short term. They're very sensitive about it. And there is an Indian position. And the Chinese had been very categorical on it. So when this process is taking place, where the visit is taking place, do you feel that this succession of Dalai Lama can turn out to be a roadblock?
Karthikeya, let me try to give you a quick academic explanation to why Tibetan issue is such sensitive issue for Chinese leadership. China last November claimed that the CPC, the Chinese Communist Party, had crossed membership of 100 million people as their cadre. But if you look at people who see themselves as Buddhists in China, their number has crossed anywhere between 350 to 400 million who identify themselves as Buddhists. Now, not all of them will be Tibetan Buddhism followers or followers of His Holiness Dalai Lama, but that is what makes issue of Dalai Lama's reincarnation such a sensitive issue for Chinese. And given India's approach being a democratic and multicultural, diverse country, we have always said that these are issues, religious issues are for religious organizations, and state has nothing to do as far as their selection of their leaders and the process which will decide who will be the next reincarnation is related. India officially has nothing to do. And Chinese feel very kind of perturbed as to what will happen once the reincarnation issue comes to the table. And of course, successive viewpoints of His Holiness Dalai Lama saying that he may not be born in China, that it is his own selected body which will be a legitimate body to decide, identify, and sort of legitimize who will be the next Dalai Lama, are very sensitive issues for Chinese. But as far as Chinese infrastructure on the border is concerned, yes, it has very clear implications for India. But it could also be seen that China's infrastructure building has been very unusual and is often seen setting new global standards in terms of overall infrastructure building. And it's not that India is not building infrastructure in frontier areas. India is also building frontier areas much more accessible and much more connected. So that is a kind of a new reality of transformed India.
Can we say that there has been a thaw, sir? For our viewers, can we say there is a thaw?
That is
there is a
we
thaw?
need to now start. that is where we need to start new process of CBMs, because China and India are all both very different countries today.
So can we say there is a thaw? Is it correct to say?
Indeed, there is an increasingly thawing reality that one can notice, and therefore you see the positive language on both sides. For example, the allowance of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, India relaxing the visa process. In fact, India is also almost starting the process of relaxing Chinese investments into India, of course, in a very selected sectors, in energy, renewable energy, or avoiding things like defense, telecommunications, or other digital infrastructure, which could have linkage implications for national security. But India is reconsidering how to open up
but there is
for
also
Chinese
another.
investments
But there is
and
also.
increase trade.
But there's also another
In fact,
element. But
trade-
that's a.
in fact,
That's a.
let me
Sir,
just say
okay. Tell me.
For April to July, India's exports to China increased by 20%, and that has a correlation to tariffs from President Trump.
Okay, and there's another aspect, when I visited China, I realized it, that there is something called people's opinion, public opinion. We think that our opinion is against China. If you talk to Chinese civil society, their opinion is also against us. And I felt it in Xi'an when I was there. But that's a conversation for a different day, that why public opinions are so opposed to each other at people-to-people level. But that's another conversation. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining me, because it's now time for the third on point. And in the third on point, we are looking at whether Putin trumped Donald Trump in Alaska, and what happens when Zelensky meets Trump tonight. Russian President Vladimir Putin dialed Prime Minister Modi to share insights on his meeting with American President Donald Trump in Alaska, and that's a big